Hey everybody, I'm Linda Brubaker and this is Job Search Lunch and Learn. We're a networking support group. We're here to give you advice, tips, tricks, support, okay, and some networking opportunities to help you move to your next forever job. Now, I'm a job search coach. Actually, I'm calling myself these days a career transitions coach while I look for something better because my goal is to help you find your next forever job. My strength is built on over 20 years of experience as an HR recruiter, as an executive search consultant, as a hiring manager, and an HR business partner, and 8 years now doing this kind of career transitions coaching. One of the things that I bring you is advice from all sides of the desk. I know what works from everyone because I do a lot of research in addition to my own personal knowledge. I'm always in contact with hiring managers, with recruiters, with industry leaders, and doing a lot of research on the industry itself and the job market itself, just to make sure that we know what's really going on and what works and what doesn't. Here's my only pitch. I'm doing this as my labor of love. I really enjoy this kind of giving back and giving you that networking and support. But I support that through my own business. I do job search coaching or career transition coaching, and I'm going to put that information in the chat. If anyone is interested in working with me, I would love to do that. In fact, there's going to be a link to a 20-minute chat for anybody who wants to have a quick conversation. That's my pitch. We know you don't want to be here. Our goal is to give you the support you need in order to move forward. Ken Lang is here to support you as well. Ken's another job search coach. And Ken, if you'd like to introduce yourself, please do.
Sure. Happy to be here, everyone. I'm here to support Linda. I support job seekers primarily in northern New Jersey and New York City. I do a lot of in-person events, and like many of you, I was in transition for a while, so I do see some of the challenges. I'm currently a brand specialist at Lee Hecht Harrison, helping people get back into the workforce. And if you want to have a conversation with me, I'm happy to do it. But I'm here for the most part to hear what you have to say so I can best support you in any way possible. It's not what I know, it's what you know and can help me so I can help others with. So thank you very much, Linda.
And that's a great way of putting it. Our goal is to help you. So we're not here to tell you what needs to be done necessarily. We're here to answer your questions, give you advice and support, and tell you what works and what doesn't. Okay. So let's keep this going. Make sure you do add your information into the chat, please. Tell us not only who you are, but a couple of things about what you're looking for. Make your posts relatively short. Okay. Karen put one in there, what kinds of job titles she's looking for, where she's looking for them. That's perfect. We want to be able to support you and send opportunities your way. If you are new to the group, please put new in all caps in the chat. We'll have a couple of minutes to introduce some new people to the group. But we always start these with quick wins because wins are really important in a variety of different ways. By the way, one more piece of housekeeping, two more. One is if you have a question, always make sure you put the word question all in caps in the chat as well as raising your hand. That way we make sure that we get all those questions answered. And if we can't do them today, we'll make sure that we answer them off screen or in the private group. In addition, make sure that you're raising your digital hand. So if you don't know where that is, that's down at the bottom of the screen. It looks like a little hand, or just wave your hand on screen and we'll see you there as well. Okay, so let's start with some quick wins. Anybody have a quick win that they want to share for the week? And a quick win, by the way, can even be that you had an interview and it didn't go anywhere. Okay, or that you applied for something and got a rejection. Doesn't matter what it is, it's always a win because we can go from it. So David, I'm going to start with you first.
Okay. This last Friday, I had an in-person interview with a nearby nursing home for a medical records coordinator position. I asked all the questions on my list, asked a few extra questions. I got a tour of the facility and I enjoyed the tour. So the interview lasted more than a half hour slightly. So he seemed to enjoy seeing me and I complimented him on everything he had in his office. So I think I'm a good candidate for that particular position. I hope I get it.
We hope so too. You'll have to keep us posted.
Will do.
Okay. Can you share a little bit about some of the questions you said you asked? You got all of your questions asked?
Well, the first six questions I asked were kind of like a boilerplate. What's a typical day like? What's the biggest challenge you have? What kind of electronic medical record software do you use? And then when I ran out of those, he was able to answer those pretty quickly. I came up with some questions on the fly. For example, I didn't know not very much about long-term care facilities, so I asked them, "Do you have like a set lights out and lights on period so know people can get up and go to bed whenever they like?" I also asked them, let's see, what else did I ask him? I said since I wanted to keep a conversation going, I better pick up some of my own questions, so I asked him that, and I also asked him how long people stayed if you were in a short-term rehab, and usually for 3 to 4 weeks. I asked him if patients had the ability to see their own doctors that they knew from before they were admitted to the nursing home, and he said they can, but they usually stick with the doctors that are in-house.
Okay.
And those extra questions, I think, led to the tour.
I think so too. And one of the things that I like about those questions, for those of you who are new here, one of the things that we do is we turn some of these into teachable moments. Okay. We share the good advice. He's not asking questions about salary, benefits, working hours. He's asking questions about the organization itself. He's asking questions that will help him to frame things that shows his value to the role, because that's always what you want to do. Every question that you ask should be used as a way of not only demonstrating your knowledge of the organization, so never ask a question that you should know beforehand, but also use those as a way of building on the challenges and here's how I can help. Always turn it around, even in your mind or in your follow-ups, your next interviews, your thank yous with, you've shared that challenge. You're not saying that piece, but here's how I can help you move forward. Here's what I can do to make it important for you. So good luck, David. Thank you.
And also, when you apply, don't just respond with your customized resume or cover letter with the qualifications. Try to also customize it based on the job duties. I think another thing I did to help me is I brought the fact that I did mass mailings when I was volunteering with cancer support community. I think that might have helped me because I actually got a call for an interview just a few minutes after I finished applying.
No, you have to figure out what's important to them. That's exactly right. Very good. Okay. Jim, I think you were next. Can you unmute? There you go.
Yes.
There
Hi.
you go.
So yesterday I took my parents to or was it Monday? No, it was yesterday. I'm sorry. To a doctor appointment, and it was in a big office building, and it was, different offices, including doctors. So across the hall, I saw this place where all these people were working on computer screens and stuff. And I Google searched the company. It's actually a law firm. They work in healthcare reimbursement, and they have a job listing there. And I happen to have a connection to one of the partners. So hopefully, that can take me somewhere.
Excellent. So did you follow up on the partner connection that you knew? And
Well, I just did it a little while ago because I haven't been in touch with them in a long time. So we have a mutual connection. I said, hey, mutual, a woman that we know. And I said, have you been in touch with him? And she's like, yeah, I talked to him last week. Go ahead and call him, So I pinged him first on LinkedIn, and then I'll ask him when he take a call.
good. Let us know how it goes. Those connections are important. Okay. Whether it's somebody you know or somebody you don't, but if it's somebody, for example, that you don't know, nobody's going to, maybe my own contrary opinion, but doing this as a recruiter as well as anything else, unless people really know who you are, know how you work, they're not going to necessarily walk your information down the road. But because you know this person, you have that personal relationship, that's different. Okay. But the networking connections that you make online or in person or whatever, unless they actually know it, may not do it. It's a great way of saying, not, can you help me go do this job, but build those connections first.
Right.
Okay. Jim already has it. And then you build on that to move forward. Okay.
Well, also that he knows the partner, he could tell me what it's like, what the partner is like, what it would be like to work there, which is what I've been asking a lot of people that I know. What's it like working at a small law firm? And,
Yeah.
I haven't got much response. So maybe he would be able to tell me some more about that.
Absolutely. And the idea is he'll know also not only who the people are and what their challenges are, but he can share that with you and you can use that as you move forward. Perfect way of doing it.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck. Keep us posted.
Thank you.
Stephen, I think you were next.
Hi, Linda. Hi, everyone. I've been talking about the same opportunity for the last few weeks. So the latest update is I did have an interview with the EVP of the company on Friday afternoon. I thought it went very well. A little unnerving part is that he did not come on camera. I was. So I
Ooh,
couldn't exactly get the body language and the reactions and so on. But he did have some positive things to say. He was positive with the questions I was asking, and we had a really nice conversation. I thought that was going to be it, and decision making would happen, soon after that. But then as I was asking about next steps, he mentioned that if we go forward with you, we'd like you to talk to the COO and the CFO. I don't know if that's more, just like a quick meet and greet, or if it's like true, like, interview and so on. But maybe that's a good sign, that he actually mentioned that. So hopefully that's the case. It's going to drag on a little longer than I expected because they have board meetings and blah, 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 and a quarter and all this stuff. So it may go into like the second week of May before decisions are made. But so I sit and wait anxiously and pursue other opportunities in the meantime. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
absolutely. So a couple of things that I'm pulling out of this, besides the fact that it sounds like it's a great opportunity and it's moving forward. One of which is the idea that you're continuing to look, continue to look until you've got something firm and you've actually started. You saw Ken's post the other day about getting ready to actually start a job. This was several years ago, and then being told that the job really wasn't there. Excuse me. That's also, you always keep looking. Second is, my concern is when they've got that blank screen interview on their side. Sorry. As you all know, that's very uncomfortable. Okay, as you mentioned it. So what I might suggest is if you're faced with that kind of a situation, if they don't have their camera on, ask him if they would prefer to do this by phone. Okay. It's better than calling them out saying, turn your camera
Right.
on. So that's just another way of doing it. But
Yeah.
those
Thank you.
one-way interviews where you see them or they see you and you don't see them, very uncomfortable.
Yeah, I like to try to read the body language, obviously, and the
Of
eye
course.
contact and so on. And I think I was doing all of that, but it's hard, hard when you don't see the other side.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay. Ken, did you have anything to add to that?
Not really. I mean, it can be definitely unnerving. I think a lot of times, you know, I I wouldn't read too much into it. The last part of that meeting with the COO, I think that could probably just be a last thing, like just to make sure that you're a culture fit or something like that. That's happened to me before, just to make sure. But it sounds really promising.
I
Yeah,
think so
thank
too.
you.
I think it sounds great.
Thanks.
Hello there.
I'm up.
You're up.
I'm up. Hi, Mark Jarrow. So I've been looking for the last about 4.5, 5 weeks, and the biggest thing I've learned is referrals. So one of my old coworkers works at a different company. She put in a referral for me. I got a call from two different recruiters because I went with two different positions. So I had an interview Monday. I have one tomorrow, and then I have one today that was scheduled from just applying and and reaching out. So getting a lot of traction. And I also had feedback from an interview last week with an international company. I had an hour interview and it went very well. So again, there's stuff out there. It's just taking a little long, to get through the gate.
Absolutely. So remind us, Mark, Matt, no, excuse me, Mark, what kinds of things do you do? What are you looking for?
I'm in technology, so I've always worked in the contact center space, and I've worked on software, so more from the manufacturer side. And what we do, or what I've done, is solution consulting. What other people may call it is a sales engineer, pre-sales engineer, solution architect. And I don't code, so most of my stuff is in the design and connecting the pieces and moving opportunities from stage 2 to stage 4. So the account reps or account executives can go ahead and close the deal, and that the infrastructure and all the connectivity is in place. So that's my specialty. And the one stretch that I'm looking for is what they call the channel partner area, or channel partner roles, where you're managing vendors, or you're a vendor in the channel and you're helping it grow. So that's kind of a stretch, because that's more of a direct type sales role, which I haven't done, and I've been more in the pre-sales role. So I'm kind of sticking at that 80%, but also, looking at a few other things.
Okay. And the other thing that you might do, there's that in-between role between the pre-sales and the direct channel sales. And for the moment, sorry, my brain isn't working right now, trying to remember what that's called. It's not customer support. I'm sorry?
No, there's customer success. There's customer
That's what I'm
success
looking for.
role.
Yeah.
And the other role that I've looked at too is technical account manager as well. So I've looked at both of those, and but if they have a solution consultant role, I'm applying to that first. But other companies, I can do the other role if I need to, but I haven't.
So what I love is the fact that you're looking at lots of different opportunities, and it may not be the best job market, but one of the things that's really great is not only the fact that you've got these referrals in, but that you're looking based on what the job is all about rather than necessarily on the title. And that's
No, that's true. And I'm
wonderful.
looking for product. My requirements when I go look at a company is, does the product excite me? Is it something that I can wake up every day? Does it help people? And, what's the culture like? Did a lot of people leave the company? Are they growing? Where are they financially? So I'm looking at a few things. Of course, as they say, you're going to kiss some frogs, but I tend to, do my research before, I get there. And of course, you have that salary conversation early on, so you're not wasting time, in the first, 2 calls.
Absolutely. One other thing that you said that's really important, and I'm putting on my recruiter hat at this point, is that if somebody refers you in, if you've got a referral name somewhere in that cover letter or in that application, whether they walk you down the hall or not, but if you've got that name, many companies have an almost automatic, I'm going to give it more than just a cursory glance. Okay. And in many cases, there is a company requirement that if there is that referral name, okay, there will be at least a phone interview that will be granted.
Right.
Okay.
And that's what happened this week. So 2 of mine are directly from that. And I was amazed at the speed. But
Yep.
then, sometimes, and look, I've been guilty of it too. I've applied and then went back, and a friend have said, oh, I can't refer you now because, you didn't go through me or stuff like that. But sometimes you're in a job panic, right? You see that job 1 a.m. in the morning, you're scrolling and you want to apply for it. You don't want it to close out. And so sometimes, I've lost out on a referral here or there. So I try to be a little bit more mindful of asking, but then here's the other thing. Even if it was an old coworker, they may not get back to you in time. And that's what I found as
That's
well on
exactly
LinkedIn.
right.
I
Yeah.
have messaged so many people saying, hey, can you refer me? Can you do this? I've worked, and nothing.
Yeah.
And so you just have to apply and say, I'm sorry, but
That's exactly right. And then even in an interview or in a follow-up, okay, or in a cover letter, and if you've got the opportunity to go in, if you set up an account on their system, company system, you can go in and modify that application.
That's true. But I do like the easy applications, not the easy button, but the easy applications where you fill out your information, you attach your resume cover, and maybe they ask you a paragraph or something. It's made it streamlined that you're not putting in your job history and all that stuff. And I appreciate the companies that have done that.
And that's great. Yeah, if you don't have to re-enter everything, that's the best system out there.
Right.
Good luck. Keep
And
us
I don't
posted.
have too many different resumes. I have just one resume, but I have different, I'm not saying cover letters, but I have what I call a bio. So I have different short bios, like executive summaries of what I've done, and I use that instead of a cover letter. And so far, it seems to be working.
Okay. Glad it's working for you.
Thank you.
Can you unmute, please?
Hi, everybody.
There you go.
So, and thank you, Linda, for doing this all the time. So I actually, I've been in marketing, digital marketing for 13 years. Was impacted, unfortunately, in the last few years twice by mass layoffs. So I've been in an active search, interviewed for a company Monday, thought it went well, but wasn't 100% sure. And a few hours later, they moved, same day, a few hours later, they moved forward to next steps. So that's good. But what I did want to mention is I've been trying to partially transition or at least add skill sets to where more jobs are today. So I think largely AI is where companies are hiring quite a lot, but AI can also write code. So you don't have to be a software engineer to work in the space of AI. And yet more and more companies are hiring for roles in AI. And so for the 13 years of marketing experience I have, like right now I'm actively looking for a marketing position, but I'm trying to get certifications and just additional education in more of like a technical deep end AI, AI space, or one of maybe a few different areas of AI. So I'm currently, as of this week, I started taking through Google. They have a couple different AI certifications, and I decided to take one of them on, and it's just 6 online courses. It's free. There's 4 labs, each of which is an hour and a half. And so I mentioned this just largely, for anybody who may be interested in kind of this public thing, which is AI, which is very much around the world. But I think so many of these big tech companies have innovated and had AI for a very long time before the public had access to it. And so I think that with all the change that's happening, trends being created, companies hiring in the space, the way I've kind of seen things personally is, it doesn't ever hurt to try to gain additional education. AI is complex and technical. So if you're not technical, it doesn't mean that you can't look into AI. There's ways to learn, at least what I'm going through this week. I mean, there's ways to learn it in a non-technical way, but at least it gives you additional education. And hopefully for those who may be interested, maybe it'll give each of us a additional kind of boost when it comes to recruiters looking at resumes and LinkedIn profiles, and in turn asking to interview, because some of them may see the tendency for an individual to advance their kind of education and kind of move into what the hot talk of the town is. So just throwing this out there, not that everybody's going to do it, or even not that everybody would be interested in it, but for me personally, if there's a role out there where I can combine marketing and some AI or some technical aspects of AI, I'm kind of taking the approach of maybe it'll, differentiate myself from some other people in marketing, which is a very crowded field in the industry. So, so we'll see how it goes, but currently in the process this week of getting the certification.
Excellent. And if you've got additional places besides just Google that are putting some of those free courses out there so that people can learn them, for all of you, if you have resources to share them here in the chat, as well as in our private group. They're really important for people to know. Okay.
Yeah, I'll share it in chat.
Yes, please.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hi
Hello
there.
there.
I have a life win, not a job win.
That's okay. It doesn't have to be a
am
job
one
win.
of the people that still reads a physical newspaper. So I went out to get the newspaper this morning. I have to walk up the hill to get it. And I ran into 2 Latinas looking for directions. So I got to practice my Spanish and give them directions to where they were going. That's my win, my day set.
No, actually, that's a great win. You never know where those
Yeah.
opportunities are going to come from. I think it's wonderful.
Anyway,
Congratulations.
just to inspire everybody.
Okay. So say something quickly to us in Spanish and then we'll let you go.
Hola. Buenos días. ¿Cómo están?
Yeah, that's not mine too.
¿Dónde su vives? ¿Dónde tú vives? Sorry.
It's okay. I grew up in, or went to high school and college in Florida. And when I would wander around in some places in the South Florida area, they would usually address me first in Spanish rather
Buena
than
suerte.
English. And so my response was, me llama so-and-so, no habla español.
Perfecto.
But that was it. Hello, Denise.
Hi, thanks for being. Oh, Hi, everyone. Ken and Linda, thank you for doing this. All right, so as you all know, I've been actively looking, and I've had some wins because I've been ramping up my in-person networking events. I'm finally being seen. I'm finally being heard. Finally meeting the right people. What I heard from one friend who is using me as a referral for her company, she said, play up the returner to the workforce, and I didn't do that. She said that when you're on the interview, I told them that you've been a stay-at-home mom, advocating for your daughter, that you have been working. And I was told by someone else that she was a returner to the workforce and that I should blow that up. It feels like returner is a dirty word, but then the more people I talk to, they're saying blow it up on LinkedIn, create an essay about being a returner to the workforce, and engage other returners to the workforce and support each other. What are your thoughts on that? Because I've gotten the impression that I need to say I'm looking for new opportunities. So now I'm hearing different things and they seem to have the same amount of weight. Like, what are you seeing out there?
So I'm seeing a variety of different things, Denise, and this is an open question for everybody. What I'm seeing is that, yes, the idea of returning back to the workforce is a good thing, okay, depending upon what it is. And I will tell you that one of the things that I just added in the chat is an organization called irelaunch.com.
I know I haven't had luck with them. I'm well aware of them.
That may be. However, one of the things that's useful is not necessarily the jobs they're posting, but knowing that those companies support people who are returning to the workforce.
Okay. I've gone down that route and I'm still going down that route. So I appreciate you saying that.
So even though you may not be a fit for one of their, what I call internships for grownups, okay, knowing that these companies all support returning workers is a good thing.
And I just found another one while I was on this site, while I was on this Zoom, I found something else that supports returners.
Yep.
And it's DEI, which is what I'm looking for. And it's still being said, and it's not going to be covered up. And I appreciate the spotlight for this. I have one more question. With the Coursera, with the free courses, with different Zoom courses that are going on, LinkedIn seems to like, beside referrals, they like to see that you're doing courses. Where does it become too much, and where is it acceptable when people post that they're taking courses or have not taking courses but have completed courses?
So if you're taking, it's a great question, actually.
Thank you.
I want to see you add every course if it is job related. Now, some of them are things like finding happiness. Coursera offers that one for free. I think it's through Harvard or Yale. That one is not one necessarily that I would post. Okay.
Yeah.
Take it. It's fun. I did it during the pandemic, but it's not necessarily one of the ones that I would list there. But if it is in any way job related, absolutely include it. If it's a certification or a certificate, absolutely include it. Now, do you have to broadcast it out to everybody? That's your choice. Okay. LinkedIn gives you that option when you add it to the educational section of your profile.
But
what
what
for
are
those
your
of you, for
personal
example, taking
thoughts?
anything AI related right now, add it. If you're taking any kind of certificate or certification, add it. Okay, and broadcast
What
it.
if, so there are some courses being offered privately and they're not offering certificates, but they're offering the training. Does the course have to have a certificate to be legitimized enough for putting it under education or broadcasting it?
I'm sorry, say that again.
There's some courses, especially AI courses, that don't have certificates.
And they may not have a certificate. It doesn't have to be a certificate. You completed the course.
Right.
Okay. So course completion, there's several different levels. Course completion, a certificate, and a certification. Okay, 3 different levels. Okay.
Thank you.
And Charles, the course that I took was, I think it was offered by Harvard through Coursera. Okay. It's basically about finding happy. I don't remember what the name of the course was.
It's
You
easy to
can add
find.
it. It's a good course to take. It's another, thank you.
Right.
It's a good place to do things, but it's not necessarily one that I would broadcast out to everybody. It doesn't do you any good from a job search perspective.
Not at all. Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome. Any other quick wins? Okay. By the way, if you've got a free LinkedIn account, there are courses that you can take for free. Some of them you can't. But what you'll find is that, and one of the advantages, by the way, sometimes of posting about the LinkedIn courses that you're taking and completed, is that sometimes if you comment, somebody else comments on that, likes it, it gives you the option for 24 to 48 hours to take that course yourself for free. Doesn't do that all the time, but it often will. In addition, if you can't take the courses for free on LinkedIn, and they offer them every once in a while for free, I put a link to some of them that are offered now through May 7th. You can, in many cases, take them through your local library and see whether or not they offer them. It's harder to add it to your LinkedIn profile. It's not an automatic ad, but your reference librarian can show you how to do that. But that's another way of taking them for free. And then the third way of taking them for free, this is a LinkedIn don't listen, but they know it happens, is you can sign up for a professional account, a paid account for a month and take as many of those courses as you want, add them all to your profile, blast them out to everybody. Just make sure that if you don't want to continue paying for it, that you set up a calendar reminder on day 29 so that you cancel it. Because on day 30, they will charge you. Okay. Hi, Desiree.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Last week I mentioned that I had an interview scheduled, which ended up occurring on Thursday versus Wednesday. They had an emergency on Wednesday. Had the interview on Thursday about noon, and then at the end of the interview, talking about next steps, the director, who, by the way, I mentioned in the comments, also was not on video. We had a WebEx set up, and she indicated she had an issue with her WebEx, so she was off camera. I had the interview with her. At the end of it, she said, "Hey, do you have any more time later on so I can put you, have an interview with you and one of the other program managers?" I told her, I said, "Yeah, I have some time this afternoon." So I ended up having a second interview basically on the same day with another person within her organization as well. So now I'm just waiting. Essentially, the contract recruiter is a contract position called, I think, yesterday and asked me that, told me that they're waiting to hear back any kind of feedback or anything like that, send the thank you letters, all of that. But I haven't heard anything yet, so I don't know which way it's going to go, but at least I had the interview.
Absolutely right. Perfect. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. So David just asked in the chat if we were going to get starting. My failure today is my mouth isn't working the way I want it to. He asked if we were going to be talking about failures. And we've been talking about them to some extent all along, whether it's our failure or somebody else's. The idea is that failure happens. Things don't always work the way we want to. Okay, whether you don't hear back from somebody, whether you're in an interview and your camera is on and theirs isn't, and how do you deal with those situations? The whole idea is to be able to turn that into a success. So David, since you asked about that, do you have a specific question about failures, talking about failures?
Only the most obvious one is, I think you said in the advertisement of this session that it's in some way a good thing. I have
It
trouble
actually
seeing
is.
the positive of failure, so I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Okay, so let me tell you why I think failure is a good thing. We've already talked about the fact that there are several ways that you can define failure.
Mhm.
Okay. We talk about successes here, even whether they work forward or whether you move forward or not. A failure, in many cases, is sometimes a redirection. It's not the right opportunity. But more importantly, a failure gives you the opportunity to try and do something different. I posted earlier in the week about the idea of sending a thank you note after you've been rejected after an interview. So some people say, oh, I failed, that didn't go anywhere, it's my fault. It's not necessarily true. Okay. They have lots of candidates going forward, and they're not going to be able to offer the job to everyone. But if you send that thank you note, not just after an interview, but after you've been turned down after an interview, that keeps you up at the top of the forefront, okay, of somebody else's mind. It's the idea that you're doing something different. You're saying you're really interested in the organization. You're telling them you're going to keep in touch for future opportunities, and then you do that. And you continue to network not only within the company, if it's one of your targets, and you continue to comment on their posts and to engage, you're doing something that most people won't. So if the person that they hired doesn't work out, you're the first person they think about. If they have new opportunities, you're one of the first people they think about. If you apply again, they're going to remember that. So that's turning
This would-
that, what might be considered a failure, into a success. It
This would be
works
if you
for
had-
your advantage.
Okay. This would be if you had an interview and they chose someone else, but not, right? It wouldn't be if you didn't get the interview in the first place.
Right. This is not if you didn't get the interview in the first place. You had to have, in order to do that, it's really just making sure that you've had at least some sort of a conversation with somebody.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sandra says failures are an opportunity to measure and adjust, and that's absolutely right. That's one of the great things, is it gives you a chance to reevaluate not only your goals and what you're doing right and wrong. In some cases,
Okay.
there's nothing
Well,
wrong with
okay.
what you're doing. It's just the way things work. So don't worry about that. But more importantly, here's what I like. It gives you the opportunity to learn and grow, to change. So if you've ever been in a group situation, and I think we're talking about groups next week when we're talking teamwork, where you tried something and it didn't work the first time. You regrouped and you did something else as a team. You came up with a different solution. That's great. That's turning that failure into a success, into a learning experience. You try. I'm a great one for this, okay? I'm one of those people who will try something, and if it doesn't work, I've finally learned not to keep banging my head against the wall to try and make it work, but to either reach out for help and support, to take a class, to ask for a resource, or to try it a different way, all of which are turning those failures into a success. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up today, in addition to answering your questions, is that when we're in interviews, you often hear that whole idea of strengths and weaknesses. What I'm finding and what I'm hoping more companies do is that they're beginning to ask, instead of a weakness, they're asking you to tell them about a time you failed. Tell them about a failure.
Mm.
And if they ask for a weakness, you can still turn it around into a failure and what you learn from it. The reason that I like that idea of a failure, tell me about the time you failed, is that it gives you that opportunity to give an interview story. Here's what I learned so that doesn't happen again. Okay, you don't use those words, doesn't happen again, but here's how I changed it. Here's what I recognized. Here's what I'm going to do differently next time. Here's the class that I've taken or I'm enrolled in or I just finished so that I can learn this new skill. Here's the way I reached out to someone else on the team in order to make it work. So turning that from a failure to success is one thing. But even if you're asked that question about weaknesses, a weaknesses response is really dull. Pre-plan. Doesn't say a whole lot. But if you can say, tell me about a weakness. Well, let me tell you about a time that I tried something and it didn't work. You take control of that narrative. It gives you the opportunity to highlight your skills, your adaptability in ways that are important for the company. So another way of talking about some of those soft skills. Okay. Absolutely right. People remember stories because they're more important. It helps keep you different from other people. So can you think about a time that you failed and you have a question about it, and how can we turn that into a success? Yes, Trip, the success can be dumb luck, cannot be repeatable, but showing that you know the difference between what works and what doesn't and how you adapt, absolutely right. Okay. That makes you stand out not only as a potential employee, but as a leader. So here's one more thing that I want you to know. It's important for you to give yourself permission to fail. And one of the things that I encourage you to do when you're looking at your conversations, and you're not going to necessarily do this in terms of asking a question for the employees or the hiring managers during the interview, but you want somebody who's going to give you permission to fail. If you're working in a team, you want to be able to give other people permission to fail if you're leading or mentoring. If you're doing things the same old way, yes, they may work, but you're not learning and you're not growing and you're not adapting. Permission to fail means that even if it's just you, that you're willing to put yourself out there, that you're willing to try, you're willing to learn, you're willing to adapt, you're willing to grow. If you're not willing to fail, you never grow. If you do things exactly the same way every time, you don't grow, you don't learn. And that's one of the things that I love about some of the jobs that y'all are applying for, is that not only are they stretches, okay, you match 70, 75%, that's putting yourself out there. But there are the opportunities for you to really build on what you do know and what you don't, what you like to do and what you don't. Is that making sense to any of you? Any questions about that whole idea of the failure? So tell me about a time, guys, when you have failed. Yes, Trip.
You're asking us for sharing some, right? I just want to make sure I
I
understood
am.
the question properly. Yeah. Currently being in the market, I failed to do enough research on the job I was going into, and I didn't realize I wasn't going to be a good fit. It was a very small business, very much we do it this way because we've done it this way. I came in as a change agent in a family-run business that was very family-centric. I wasn't the right person to come in and change that organization, and I failed to fit into the culture, and I failed to keep my job because of that. So I learned how to do better research, learned to really look at it, and learned, I hear people complain about the multiple layers of interviews. I really look forward to that because I want to meet the people I'm working with and know, am I going to be a good fit? Because I would rather get rejected than hired and a year later be searching again. So my failure to do the proper research up front is what caused me to leave a good job and go to one that didn't work out. So
that happens.
There's my story of failure.
Right. So here's another. So what did you do next time as you were looking in order to try and get that research about the company and what they're looking for?
I'm working on that right now.
Informational
looking forward to the
interviews with
interviews
current
and
and
wanna
past
talk more.
employees are great. They'll tell you a lot about the culture and what works in that organization.
Yeah, and I want to make sure I meet more of the peers I'm working with and understand what the team I'll be fitting in, both horizontally and vertically.
Perfect. Okay. I see a question in the chat that I want to answer before I forget it. And that is, Denise said, if you go directly to the company website to apply and they have a button to apply on LinkedIn, do you apply directly on the site or on LinkedIn? Go directly to the website.
I was there and then they said there's a button that says apply on LinkedIn. So I'm going to do both.
So don't do
Don't
both.
do both.
And here's
okay.
why. Again, recruiter and ATS standpoint.
You know, I respect you. I'm listening.
I'm sorry?
You know, I respect you. I'm listening.
I appreciate that. So putting on both my recruiter and my HR manager hat, as well as my coaching hat. What happens is if you apply directly on the company's website, I'm going to get an email ding. Okay. Depending upon how often I set that up, that notification, either every time somebody applies or once or twice a day. Here are some new applications that you need to take a look at. if you go through LinkedIn, especially through Easy Apply, or you go through Indeed and you apply there, it's going to take longer for me to get it. And I may or may not get that email ding.
I agree. But what's the reason for the button? That's what threw me off.
The Easy Apply on LinkedIn?
No, there's a button on the website that says I could apply through LinkedIn, but I want to go through the website. I don't want to go through LinkedIn.
So if they've got that set up that says you can do an either or, don't do both. But they're saying it's
Gotcha.
okay. They're going to get that ding anyway.
Thank you so
The-
much.
My experience on that's that it just pre-populates the page with your information.
Yep.
So it saves you from typing in things.
Okay. Denise.
I'm good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm sorry. Desiree.
I was waiting to make sure you actually meant Denise or me.
I did
because
mean you.
People have called me Denise.
No, it's just for whatever reason, I'm having troubles reading some of the names today.
Sure. You were talking about failure earlier and asking to talk about stories.
Yes,
And
please.
one of the ones that I've shared is years ago, I worked for this large organization and I just came into the company. I'd been networking with talent acquisition for a number of months at that point, and they finally found something. Turns out my manager was somebody who I'd worked at a previous company with. So when I came in to work for her, she took some of the people who reported to her and had them report to me. One of them was needed to go on a performance improvement plan.
Ah,
And it took me a little while to realize the problem wasn't just him. She had issues with him. All the people she couldn't manage or she didn't want to manage because they were her friends, she made them basically my employees. They were directly reporting to me. This guy being one of them. I tried my best. Once I
okay.
realized that she wanted to get rid of him, so no matter what he did, she was determined that he was not going to succeed. And I feel like I failed in trying to get that through to him, to do more of what needed to be done in order for him to maintain his job.
So what do
That
you think
was
you could have done
my
better?
failure.
What could you have done differently? Not necessarily better, but differently.
I feel like maybe in my conversations with him, and the things that I was selling fairly early on, because I was trying to, okay, do this, do these 3 steps, you have a 60-day, PIP, you have to do all these things and work with him maybe a little bit closer. I was new, and I feel like maybe I should have worked with him a little bit closer. And that's just me supposing at this point, as to what I could have done differently.
Okay.
Because even talking to him, as they say, no filter. Look, dude, you need to do these types of things, etc. Trying to be really and truly transparent with him about it. But he was right in that she really didn't want him there. And there really wasn't much that I could do. I ended up having problems with her as well. When you talk about toxic bosses, that was one of them.
Yeah.
I ended up really, like, within a year, I was gone out of her group as well.
Absolutely. And Ken's right. So if you're ever in those situations, get copies of performance reviews. Okay. If you're ever placed on a PIP, when you leave a company, get a copy of always make a copy of your performance reviews before you leave. If you're taking over a new team, you can always ask to see their performance reviews up front too, as part of the process. Okay. Here's again, this little hidden treasure or a little hidden thing. If you are ever put on a performance improvement program, most times if an employer puts you on a PIP, it's their way of saying your foot is out the door. Okay. Even if you do everything listed, they've already got it in their head that this is not the right fit. So as
So
soon
they
as you
make a
have
PIP,
that PIP, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I mean to interrupt. So they put out a performance improvement plan for you. You do everything exactly right, and you can still be out the door?
Yes.
Wow,
Pretty
that's
much that was what
scary.
happened with this guy.
It's HR's loophole to get rid of somebody if that's what they want to do.
Yep. Unfortunately.
Because they can say you didn't meet whatever the requirement was, and then you're not qualified to have the job. So, because if they fire you, then that looks bad for them, and it may or may not tarnish you, I assume. I mean, either way, you can go get unemployment, even if you're on a PIP and you get laid off, or you leave, or you don't, you know.
Yeah. So my advice
Linda,
is
you said always get a performance review if you get put on a PIP. What if your company doesn't do a performance review or hadn't done one?
have never done one.
Yeah.
Then you've got a copy of the PIP. You've got a copy, ask them for a written thing. Here's what I need to do in order to improve. And then ask them in terms of that as well, even on a PIP, okay, performance improvement plan. Please, let's talk a little bit about what I do well and how I can build on those, okay, to continue to support the organization in addition to what I need to do to correct these errors or to build on those. So you try and turn it into that conversation. They may not do that, but it's your opportunity of working it. The other thing is always check with some of the people that you work with to see what they see as some of your strengths and what they would go to you for. Whether it's current employees, people you've worked with at other companies or in the past, use them as a way of trying to build on those strengths that you've got. But those PIPs, yeah, it's a hidden HR tool. Very few people survive a PIP for long, even if they do everything to correct it. Normally, if you're on a PIP, you will be out the door either at the end of the PIP or within 6 months to a year. So do the right thing, but start looking at the same time. Okay. By the way, being on a PIP isn't necessarily a failure. It's not necessarily something you did wrong, as several of you have said. It could just be the organization and the cultural fit, especially when somebody new comes in. But it's also your opportunity to continue to learn and to grow. You're not going to do the same things that are there before, okay? I admit it. I went on a PIP with one company. I got laid off later, okay? But my thing was I overpromised because I wanted to be the people pleaser. So yes, of course I can get this done within this time frame, and then I didn't. Okay, it still got done, just wasn't necessarily done as quickly as they wanted it. Okay, I corrected it, managed to stay around for a while, but eventually I was laid off. But turn that into something else. I've learned now to under promise and over deliver. So different point of view. I saw another hand up and I lost it. So if your hand was up, whose hand was up? Can somebody tell me? Okay. Was it Jennifer?
Oh, sorry, I did it by accident, so I just
Oh,
lowered it.
that's okay.
Clicked the wrong button.
It's not a problem. It happens a lot. Somehow or another, my hand got raised. And I have no idea why. So let's think about other times that you've had that failure and how can you turn it around? How can you turn that failure into something that you learn and grow from? And also from that interview standpoint, how can you turn that weakness question into a failure and growth story? when you're doing an interview, it's always important to answer the question, but there's nothing wrong with rephrasing it a little bit. Okay, in your own mind, to try and make yourself get that story out there, because you can't put a story together about a week. Okay, just not that necessarily. So has anybody tried some of that? Use that? Anybody faced the question about, tell me about a time you failed? When I was interviewing, it's one of my favorite interview questions.
Question about that same situation that I'd gone through.
I'm sorry, who's saying that?
I'm sorry, this is Desiree. I apologize.
That's okay.
No, I was saying about that same situation that I'd gone through. Like I said, it took me a little bit to realize that the manager was also part of the problem, not just the employee. Is a good way for, for future purposes to understand from both the employee perspective as well as the manager perspective exactly why they thought they were on PIP. Because I didn't really ask him. She gave me all the information. So now that I'm looking back, is that something that I should have done? Like, what do you think? Why you were put on? Now, he was a problem child. Don't get me wrong. He was a problem child. So it wasn't like he was completely blameless. It's just that I felt that he was being pushed out the door rather than her working with him to kind of, temper his more aggressive tendencies.
So if you're ever in the situation where you think a PIP may be coming, or you've got that performance review, a good manager doesn't wait until that once a year review to tell you that there's an issue. A good manager is going to give you feedback all along, and you're going to know that if it comes as part of the performance review only, that manager isn't doing his or her job. Okay, it should never come as that much of a surprise that there is an issue. Always ask for both positive and negative feedback. What am I doing well? How can I build on these? Okay, to continue to grow within the organization is basically what you're saying. And can you give me an opportunity? What kind of things would you recommend that I do to get better involved or to do this? What kinds of classes can you suggest? Would you be willing to mentor me, work with me to improve on this before that PIP goes into place? Okay. Even when the PIP is there, go ahead and ask. You have nothing to lose. And a good manager is going to get judged on how he or she supports you during that PIP. It's going to be part of their performance review. But ask for that feedback. Patricia.
Hi. You mentioned about if one had ever been asked the question of, whether one, have you had a failure? And to recap, I had an interview late Thursday last week. Haven't heard back from them yet. Linda, you actually had suggested that I asked if it was appropriate to look somebody up in LinkedIn. You said, sure, that's fine. Once I knew who I was interviewing with, and you suggested that I could send them a connection request, and they may not connect, but saying I'm looking forward to our discussion. Well, he did connect, and I was like, okay. I mean, I don't want to read too much into that, but we had the interview, and I used LinkedIn just to thank him and kind of reiterate why I thought I was good for the position. But during the interview, we were talking. I'm in IT, and we were talking. There are a lot of initiatives and sort of data management processes that are buzzwords. They're things that are valuable, but there's a lot more talk around them than actual implementation. Master data management and reference data management are two such topics. And I have master data management, and I describe a project that I led. I mean, a small project that I led in that area. And he asked me about it. But see, the fact is, it never went beyond a certain point, and I find that you don't want to dump on management too much, but there are certain initiatives that really require sustained executive support. And I've been on more than one of those that have failed after a certain point because IT can only do so much. So I explained to him without getting, really harsh about my strong feelings as to why it never got past a certain point. So he didn't ask me directly, but I couldn't make up something about the project beyond where it really ended, So I basically had to describe a project failure without even having been asked, but I did it.
And that's okay. Okay. But in
You're
that
muted,
case,
Linda.
what you can also do
Sorry.
at that point is also just say something about, we didn't get to finish the project because of changes in priorities. Okay. But here's
True, yeah.
how we would have done this, what our original goal was.
Right, yes. Well, I did describe that. I didn't use the change in priorities because honestly it was about there's a lot of territoriality, and there's, when an overarching architecture group wants to do something, and you have pockets that don't, I didn't, but change in priorities would have just been simpler, but didn't think of that.
One of the things we have to be careful of is we all have a tendency to overtalk.
Oh, I do.
Okay. And so more people honestly talk themselves out of jobs than into. And it's the
I
same
hope
thing
you're
in
not
terms of
describing
performance discussions. Always make sure you have your backup, but make sure that you've got both the positives and the negatives. And with every negative, here's your weakness, right? Here's what I want to do to change it. Here's what I'm going to be working on. Here's my goal.
Right.
And here's my plan to get there.
Yeah, that's good. I'll have to sort of make sure that I write my own talking points just in general about those kinds of projects. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds good.
Absolutely. Anything else that we want to do? So I put a couple of things, by the way, in the chat. So let me see. I'm having trouble taking you off the spotlight, but that's okay. Anyway, so a couple of things in the chat. I want to make sure that these sessions work for you all. So there's a link to a Google Sheet. I know David Pryor has used it before, several of you have, but the idea is I want to make sure that these sessions work. So tell us the topics you want us to cover. Tell us if you've got a speaker that you'd like to hear from, somebody you think can present good information. Please add that to that sheet or DM me, send me an email, okay? Put it in the chat with the word idea, all in caps so that I can find it. Let me know what works for you, because this is your group as much as it is mine. We want to make sure that you're getting the tips that you want. Okay. The other thing that's in the chat is the link back to our private group. Please make sure that you join that. And in that private group, one of the things that you can do is share those ideas, share those questions, those concerns that we either didn't get here, or we didn't quite answer the way you wanted, or you want some follow-up, or you're putting your information in the chat saying, here's what I'm looking for. Can you guys help? Or I have a question that we haven't talked about. Okay, or maybe we have. But all of those things are important. One more thing before you leave, David. I know you have to leave, and so do I. I have another presentation to get ready for quickly. One of the things you asked was, are we going to get to the topic? So I have a question for you all, and I want you to think about it. How much time do you want me to spend on the successes and the wins? Today we spent about half the time, which is what we usually do unless we have a speaker. One of the reasons that I've been doing that is the networking piece of it. The support piece is important for everybody to see what's going on, but also using them as teachable moments for other people. Here's what worked, here's what didn't, here's what we can continue to do. So if that doesn't work, let me know if you want me to spend more time on topic.
I think I like more time on topic for the most part.
Okay. I'll put something in the private group and ask that question, but thank you for the feedback. I really appreciate it. Sandra.
And maybe to satisfy those people who look for the topic, maybe have that first and then carve out time at the end for the wins. Just
That's
a
a good
suggestion.
idea.
Yeah.
That's a good thought.
We're going to try with several different kinds of formats. As I said, I want to make sure that this works for you all. Okay. When we have a speaker, we usually make it just 10 minutes. Okay. 10, 15 minutes to do the wins. Again, because they're the teachable moment kinds of things. By the way, share the group with other people, not the private group, but Lunch and Learn. And if you've picked up some tips, share those on LinkedIn too, not just in the private group, but on a post. We want to make sure that everybody gets what they need.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all. I'm getting ready to go to another presentation. If anybody wants to join me this afternoon, you are more than welcome to do that. I'm doing a presentation at 1 my times, okay, on why high performers use coaches and how coaching works. So I'm going to put the link to that in there as well. Anybody
Great
who wants to
topic.
join me, please do. Okay, it's a panel discussion. Make sure you do copy the chat. 2 ways to do it. One of which is to go up to the top of the screen where it says Job Search Lunch and Learn in that chat box, 3 dots. Click on those, and one says Save Chat. The other one is to put your cursor at the top or bottom of the chat screen, scroll all the way up or down, copy it, paste it into your Word doc yourself.